I'm not gonna front. It feels really weird to be on camera after so long. Uh, you probably noticed that I've been away. Uh, Here's why. So it's a short story, but I it's also long. Um, I have a way that I like to tell it. If you have been around me at any point within the last couple of months, which you probably haven't, but yeah, I'll start at the top. Um, you may or may not know that in February of this year, I had a grapefruit size cyst removed from my left ovary. In that same procedure, they took the ovary as well because of the damage that the cyst had done. Um, so a lot of hormonal stuff with that. A lot of things that had been going on with me got better, including some. This might be TMI. This is not about books at all, but whatever. Um, Prior to the discovery of this cyst, I had been bleeding just nonstop for about a year. So cyst gets removed, bleeding stops. I'm finally able to lose weight, which I had been greatly struggling with. Things are great. And then I started spotting again, like several months later. I started spotting again. Don't know what's going on. I started feeling dizzy and just weird. So I hit up my gynecologist and I'm like, okay, let's just remove all the equipment because, maybe something else is going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I start working towards setting up that appointment. 2 weeks after that conversation, I started feeling not great. And this not great feeling just persists. And one morning, I say to my husband, I'm like, it's really weird that that I've been feeling like this. This is weird. And he says to me, oh, maybe you're going to have my son. And I'm like, well, that's not funny. that's that's not funny at all. Um, so I dropped my kids off at school, my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old. Well, 9-year-old at that time, and my 13-year-old will not be 13 until next month, but same difference, a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. I dropped them off at school and I go buy a pregnancy test and I get home and I take that pregnancy test, and before I can even wash my hands, yeah, okay. Part of why, after he says this to me, I go ahead and buy this pregnancy test is because my first two pregnancies were plagued by a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum. And it is a very distinct feeling. But as I said, my youngest is 10 now. And it had been so long that even when that feeling had come back, I didn't immediately recognize it for what it was. I think part of that also is just my brain just not being there because, like I said, I only had one ovary. We were, we were using contraceptive methods that are supposed to be, pretty solid. So I thought my chances were pretty low of it being that. Like my brain just did not go there. But yeah, that is what it was. immediately went to the emergency room because if you remember, I mentioned I had been spotting, I had been bleeding, and my first thought was, am I having a miscarriage? And I'm just not far enough along with that process yet that the tests would not read as pregnant. But luckily, it's just implantation bleeding, I guess, because I was still very, very early in that process. But again, just the sick feeling, the dizziness, the watery mouth, just like the kind of nausea that I really have a hard time describing it. A lot of people compare hyperemesis gravidarum to morning sickness. They call it really bad morning sickness. And I guess that's an easy way to frame it because most people understand what morning sickness is, but HG is not morning sickness. I believe that women who have menstrual nausea, I think that, you might kind of understand the feeling that I'm talking about, that constant nauseous feeling through your whole menstrual cycle, but multiply that by months, spending several months just with a constant feeling of maybe food poisoning or the stomach flu, something like that. Again, it's hard to describe, but it is miserable. It's very miserable. It does have to be medicated, which is another reason why I'm like, it's not morning sickness. You're not going to get better by, chewing ginger or, drinking ginger ale, having a few saltine crackers. That is not going to help. If you have hyperemesis, you need medical care. You might need the emergency room if the dehydration gets bad enough, which it almost did for me. But luckily, my doctor, which is my new clinic, this is going to be my first time giving birth with a female OB. My first two were both male doctors. I ended up having to leave the second male doctor who he hadn't delivered any of my babies. He was actually the third male doctor that I had. But he wasn't listening about the bleeding, which led to the discovery of the cyst. I had to find a Black woman OB in my city, which was needle in a haystack, and she's not even here anymore. Just to illustrate how difficult it is where I live. But I will have a woman who believed me, off bat, about what I was feeling, and her staff, they immediately sent in prescriptions for me and made sure that I was taken care of and all of that. So I'm very grateful for that. But it's debilitating. It's debilitating. Bed rest, because you can't do anything else. Like my husband, literally every meal that happened in my house, I had nothing to do with it. Getting my kids to school was about the best that I could do. Like I could pull myself together long enough to drop my kids off at school and pick them up, to help accommodate, for his work schedule. But other than that, there was nothing I could do except lay in a dark room and pray and try to keep my prenatal vitamin down. And even with all that said, this has still been a better experience than the first two experiences, partially because just different place financially, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Different place, maturity, age, all of that. And just knowing immediately what was going on, knowing what I was feeling. And so we were able to act on it, but I could not work. not being able to eat or barely being able to eat, barely being able to drink, to the point that, you know, my husband is literally begging me, like, can you please just try to eat some ice chips, because your body wants to reject everything that you try to put into it. It's traumatizing, just, you know, to put it plainly. This is my third traumatic pregnancy. There did come a point where there was relief, you know, into the second and third trimesters. But that misery of the early parts is just like baked in. And it's hard. It's tough. It's it's difficult. Like I said, it's debilitating. And so obviously I was not working. I mentioned, for people, if you're part of my Patreon, you know, I mentioned, you know, I'm stepping away for a month because I'm going to be on medical leave. I did not have anything to give. All of my social media posts have been handled by my virtual assistant. Shout out to her, because I had nothing. Which is difficult for a person like me who likes to be, I do a lot. I had to pull out of a very major opportunity to speak at Romance Author Mastermind in Houston this year, which hurt to have to not do, but I knew that I just was not capable of it, even though I was on the upswing by then. I would have had to, you know, have my presentation and all of that ready, and I just honestly, I did not have the brain power to do that in a way that would have been beneficial to anyone. But I had planned other things around being in Houston that weekend. We were going to do a pop-up Girl Have You Met. Had paid the deposit for the space and everything. Had our list of people that we were going to invite, and all of that. And then I got sick, and so everything shut down. I had courses I was planning to launch. So many book releases that were supposed to happen in Q4. I was really supposed to be like putting pedal to the metal and really like ending the year with a bang. And it's difficult to process, you know, not being able to do that, having to slow down. I don't even remember the last time, you know, I sat to my computer to write, which is hard, is difficult, because I know the level of productivity I like to exist at, and that has not been the case. If you follow the house channel, Build a Home with Byron and Christina, you've probably noticed the lack of content there as well, because we were pretty much at a standstill, because Byron was keeping me, like, quite literally keeping me alive for those months that I could not take care of myself. Which is difficult as well, you know, having to put that pause on. But now, you know, he's been able to go back to that, and I am slowly but surely coming back to everything for myself. Also continuing, you know, if you're a patron, your Jonesy box is coming. Your November Jonesy box is coming. I have one more element that I have to do, and then we're going to try to get those out this Saturday, which, you know, is the week before Thanksgiving. So hopefully you get it right on time for Thanksgiving. It is a Thanksgiving themed box. So, you know, there's that. I find it exciting. I think you're going to love it. Yeah, it's a very weird feeling, because I'm not a first time mom, but things are so different now in terms of prenatal care, and it's considered a geriatric pregnancy because I'm 35 and I'll be 36 when I give birth. I'm due in spring. It's just different. It's just different. And it was absolutely not planned, which is almost like, it's almost a little embarrassing because it's like this was just not, it just wasn't planned. But you know what they say about, you make plans and God laughs at them, because he has his plan. And just thinking about all the things that I had planned to do, that will have to be kind of spread out or put on hold, and thinking about all the new things that are kind of, I guess, opened up for me. If you remember far enough back, before I was ever Christina C. Jones, Black romance author, I was being Mrs. Jones, mommy blogger. And so talking about babies, talking about home life, talking about family stuff, that is really like my foundation of, that's really like my entry point to the internet and to content creation and all of that. And I don't know that I necessarily want to follow that path again. I am excited to, to talk about baby stuff and talk about, breastfeeding and birth plans and cribs and strollers and all of that. So there will definitely be some content like that here, but I'm also still an author, and I absolutely still have at least a couple more books to write. Next year will be year 10 for me as an author, and ironically enough, I wrote my first book while I was suffering with HG for my youngest daughter. I needed an escape. I needed something to focus on, something to kind of pull me into different people's reality, and writing that book was that thing, that really kind of pulled me together. And it got a lot of, stops and starts and revamping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, before it came to the point where I released it in 2013. My youngest was born in 2012. That book came out in 2013. But it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. And I've got a bit more up my sleeve. I definitely do. But I am also going to be working through finding the balance between being mommy to, a newborn and an infant and a toddler and all those different steps all over again, finding the balance between doing that and being that and still being able to do what I love, which is terrifying. It's really, really scary to think about, because I have no idea how I'm going to balance it, but I do know that it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. However I make it work, because I've always done that. I've always made it work, and I am confident that I will be able to continue to do that. So while I cannot make any promises or any forecasting or projections about what books I'm going to have coming next, what videos I'm going to have next, or any of that, I'm just not comfortable right now, because I am still sick. I am still taking 3 or 4 pills a day, to keep myself upright. And from day to day, I don't know what the day is going to be like, but I do know that I am much better than I am 10 times better than I was 2 months ago, and maybe twice as good as I was 2 weeks ago. So, it's just a constant improvement and a constant work in progress. As always, we're developing character over here, and this has been Yeah, this this is quite a shift, but it felt really good to be able to, to find out news like this, and I'm not freaked out about it. I was more scared about being sick because I knew that I was going to be sick, because if you have HG in one pregnancy, you're most likely going to have it with every pregnancy, and often it gets worse with each subsequent pregnancy. So you just kind of don't know how it's going to affect you from time to time, but you usually do have it with every pregnancy. But that's what I was afraid of. I wasn't afraid about, the unexpected news. I'm excited. That extra room that we had over at the new home is not an extra room anymore. It's going to be a nursery now, which is very exciting to me because, you know, I get to decorate. I get to decorate a nursery, and I get to have that baby smell and those baby snuggles and all of that again. And so it's exciting. Like, I'm excited about just the possibilities. Like, it's a lot of unknown, which again can be a little scary, but I'm looking forward to it. So, that's my update. That's where I have been. Um, and yeah, that's all I got for now. So I am going to go ahead and let this go. I am very out of practice with editing, so Lord knows how long this is going to take me to do. But I'm going to work through it as well as I can. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for your constant support over all these different phases and changes and all of that. Just thank you. See you later.